to Beyond the Mat podcast, where we discuss the lives of martial artists and athletes, where we discuss before and after they leave the mat. Today, we have a very special guest to me on the show, Ryan Wood, Gracie Baja, head instructor, Arcadia, and black belt. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you very much, sir. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for saying that. So, you just got married. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Good. Hey, you guys, how long have you guys been together?
It's almost 4 years exactly, yeah.
4 years?
Yeah.
You guys are originally from Illinois?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
She's from like the Chicago suburbs and I'm from like central Illinois.
Oh, okay.
We met out here.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you guys talk about making a family or creating a family?
Yeah. That's like that's our number one goal right now. That's what we're focused on. So since our wedding in November, early November, that's kind of been what we've been pushing towards. You know, she has a big, great family, and that's always been something that is important to me, to have a great family values and have kids as soon as we can.
I don't know her as well as I know you, but I know you guys will make some great parents, and it would be great to see a little Wood running around Arcadia.
We hope so, man.
with the uniform on.
Yep.
Now, family. I come from a broken home, so I know what that looks and feels like. Tell me about Ryan growing up and how that kind of shaped who you are right now.
Yeah, so my parents were married for about, I want to say 15 years. They got married right when my mom got out of high school. And it took them a few years, but they had me when she was around like 21. And, you know, the first few years I would say were nothing like out of the normal. I played the regular sports, baseball, flag football, all that stuff. And then when I was about 6, 7 years old, my parents split. And that's when it started to get a little more complicated, I guess. But, you know, those complications, I guess, are blessings in disguise most of the time. So, yeah, my parents split when I was about 7 years old. And from then, I had a really tight relationship with my mom. You know, like she's my rock. She always has been. And we've always had a tight bond. You know, I never felt like I had to keep any secrets from my mom. And
that's a blessing right there.
Yeah,
to know that you have someone that you could tell anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a freeing thing. You know, if you don't have people around you, or anybody that you can actually be open and talk about how you actually feel with, it's very hard to kind of find out how to direct yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of where I believe the head instructors at Gracie Baja are. That structure, right?
Absolutely.
That structure. And you guys are able to feel when something is off with people. And I know you, just like any other professor around the valley, you guys dive into that, throw your arms around people to make them feel better about themselves. And whatever words work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you find yourself mentoring or comforting people that come inside the school that may be having a tough time in life?
Yeah, you know, I do. And I think like I really try to understand where people are coming from, because like jiu-jitsu does require a lot of structure, a lot of discipline, and there's a lot of different paths you can take with jiu-jitsu. Like you can't ignore that. And no matter who comes in or what the deal is, what their reason is, I think structure is something hard for anybody to do. You know, I think it's hard for anybody to say, I'm going to go in somewhere and have somebody tell me what I'm going to do when and how. That's tough, especially as an adult or a teenager that's kind of rebellious. And, you know, for me, myself, I hate structure. If I had it my way, I would not do a whole lot with my time. But I know I thrive in structure.
Yep.
You know, look at all sorts of different examples around the world, like in the military, or I know our school system's kind of weird, but even school, like having that structure or your work day, that gets you through every day. You know, like if you don't have a structure, it's very hard to set goals, achieve those, and continue to do that over and over and over again. So structure is a huge part of it, whether you like it or not. And you see the clear difference in people that have a structured day and those who just kind of play it by ear.
Yep.
And it's a lifestyle thing, and that's a hard adjustment to make.
It is a lifestyle. I'm grateful. I've had Professor Zuza, Professor Dan, and now Professor JoJo. I've always been able to go to them and talk about things that may be going on with me, whether it's me being absent from training for a week or a few days. It's comforting to know that you could go to a building and not have to think about anything but what you're doing in that particular moment. And I think that's what's good about all of you professors around the valley. You guys care. I haven't ran into one that did not care and did not have that winning culture inside the building.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of like remembering where you were when you were at that spot. Like I was a blue belt, I think, for 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, and a big chunk of that in the middle, like I was not focused on jiu-jitsu, but I went to my professor and I didn't feel judgment like, oh, when I was a blue belt, I was doing it every day. I was competing every weekend, which I know he was. And I was, running around with other kids my age and making bad choices and whatnot. But I didn't feel the judgment. And he was like, Ryan, this is your path. It's not about me or you. I'm a part of yours, but it's guiding you your own way. And knowing that, and that it's really not a comparison game, that should bring a lot of people comfort. And I hope it does. And I think that's the message that a lot of professors try to get through, is that you're not being judged. We're meeting you where you are and building you where we see you can be. And hopefully we can allow you to see that too, because it's really special. And a lot of people don't see all their potential and what they can do. And including myself sometimes. I think everybody goes through waves of that. But it's important to have people in your ear telling you, you can do more than you think and you're worth a lot.
When you were younger, and we could go to 10, 14 years old, you spoke about making some wrong decisions and hanging out with some people that you probably should think twice about. Who came into your life to kind of shake you and say, hey, here's the deal. You're very good at this. You can make a life from this. Who did you have in your corner to get you to look at things different?
I think it's a combination of people. At the time when I was hanging around like a crowd I probably shouldn't, and nothing against those people. I think like people are put in different situations for different reasons, and like I said, there should be no judgment on that. It just wasn't the spot for me to be, and I was living with my grandparents at the time. My mom was out of state, and they kind of gave me an ultimatum. They were like, Ryan, you either keep doing this and you find yourself, locked up or whatever else, or you can go to the military. They had a meeting set up with me and like a Navy recruiter, so I went to that. Or you can figure out how to make jiu-jitsu work. And I was like, shit, I better make jiu-jitsu work. Yeah. So then I went to my professor, Marcos Bajos at the time, and he previously had said, Ryan, you're not holding up your responsibilities. You're not coming into the classes you say you're going to teach. You're cut. You're just a normal student. And I didn't have any responsibility there.
How did that feel? How did that make you feel?
Oh, man, that was heartbreaking. I went home. I had all my belts, like white, yellow, my green belts, all that stuff. And I went and I took them all off the wall. I threw my medals in a garbage bag. And, like, I didn't talk to anybody for, like, a couple days. It was pretty rough. And after this whole thing happened, my mom had moved. I was getting involved with some bad situations. And then I had gone back to him. So I went and he was like, Ryan, I need you in my life, and I know you need this. It was a very mutual. It wasn't like, hey, I know you need something from me. This is what I need from you. It was like, I want you here because I love you. And I think that was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out.
Yep.
So,
and that gives you a male figure in your life as well, right?
Totally. Like Marcos, my grandpa Jack, those are two huge ones, of course, Professor Flavio and Dave. Like, I feel like even though I didn't have, and my own dad, but even if I didn't have like a steady father figure, there were different times I could have different referrals. And even if I didn't, I could have great examples of what not to do.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you can learn from it all. So if like, you know, you feel bad about something, that doesn't mean it's right. You know, evaluate it, talk to those people that care about you, and you can kind of pick out if it's something to take or something to leave, you know, what kind of habits you want to build. But I went to Marcos, and we got back on it. I had a routine there. I would leave my school at like 3 o'clock, and I would be at Gracie Baja, which was like about 45 minutes away from my hometown. And I would be there until
That's dedication to drive 45 minutes to train.
I loved it. Yeah,
that's dedication.
Yeah, it was good for me, you know. And that was probably the time I started realizing that I need structure to do well. You know, it took a lot of hiccups and a lot of obstacles for me to kind of like be able to discipline myself to actually go. You know, I think it's different when you're a kid and you get your license and you have the freedom to pick and choose where you want to go. And then to finally say, okay, this is where I need to be. So I cut everything off, and I was going to Jiu Jitsu every day after school, cleaning the mats, and then blowing up Flavio's email. Hey man, what do I got to do to get out there?
How? That's what I was about to ask. How did you find your way to Arizona? Did Professor Flavio reach out to you, or did you reach out to Professor Flavio?
I reached out to him. So when I had just turned 16, it was 2015, and Gracie Baja Scottsdale had just opened up, and my parents saw it on Instagram or something, and they were like, "Ryan, check this out." And they showed me, and I was like, whoa, that's sweet. And they're like, yeah, Flavio's not in California. He's in Arizona. He's opening up this school. How cool would it be if you were able to work out there? And I was like, yeah, that would be cool. And I didn't like think too much of it. I always wanted to be a school owner. That was something I knew when I was a kid.
Congratulations as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I never switched up from that. Like, I take a lot of pride in, I'm very grateful that when I was young, I was able to kind of find my lane, I guess, or what I wanted to do. And I didn't change that. So I feel really grateful for being able to stick to that path. Shoot, I forgot where I was going with that.
No, you're good. But overcoming difficult times. I know you had the mentorship, and you had those positive people in your life. What did Ryan do inside himself? Because Ryan has to do the work, right? Right. What did you do to prepare yourself to take that advice that you've been getting to be a better person? How did that come about with you just deciding yourself that I'm going to be this person?
I think like it goes back to my mom, because she'd always be like, you're going to do what you want to do. Like, at the end of the day, you don't have an excuse. Like, you don't have any job responsibility other than like making sure there's gas in your tank, you know? So I would just have like a job on the weekends. But all you have to do right now is figure out what you want to do and dedicate your time to that. Like, this is your time to be selfish. And 10 years from now, I can't guarantee you're going to be able to have time to be selfish, you know? So dedicate the time now to be where you want to be then. And that just sat with me, you know? Like, you can't just wish on a star and like it'll happen for you.
No way.
There's no way. You can do that, or you can, you know, you can pray and you can do all the works that you think you need to in that way. But it comes down to you actually being willing to, you know, get your hands dirty in a sense and figure out, you know, how you're going to make it happen. Because if you expect to take a back seat in your own life, like, you know, like that's just silly. I think it's so important that you're always with your hands on the wheel. You know, you got to be the one making the turns, and you've got to be the one making the decisions. And there's a lot of risks involved in that. And I think, you know, just knowing that you have the people around you that'll love you no matter what makes you comfortable in making those decisions. So, you know, especially if you're young, if you're like a teenager, it's important that you're trying things, you know, and not being like irresponsibly like, oh, I'm young, I can try things. No, like, try things to better yourself. You know, that has to be the fuel behind it. And And like, I totally forgot, but what we were saying about my journey out here, once I met with Marcos, I basically was just like, what would the instructors out there be doing? So I'd go on Instagram, I'd watch how they were leading the classes and things like that. And
so
I would send
you
videos.
you put some study time into it.
Yeah,
to,
for
to
sure.
understand what you were getting into.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. And I would send videos of myself like teaching classes. So I'd be like, this is what I can do. You know, I've been training for this long. I've competed in these tournaments. And, you know, eventually he just emailed me back and was like, you're going to work with Professor Murillo and Coach Meach at the time, Professor Meach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So that's when I joined Gracie Baja Phoenix. And I think I like moved out within like a month of him texting me. I was like, let's do it.
Overcoming difficulties. You mentioned about, and this is common with pretty much everyone I've talked to so far about the bullying situation that they experienced.
Yeah.
Tell me about how those situations look for you in terms of being bullied.
Yeah, and I think sometimes now, like, bullying's a real thing. It's a very real thing. And I think like there were times where I'd have friends giving me a hard time and I'd be like, oh man, and I'd get my feelings hurt. And then there's times where you're actually getting picked on and somebody for no reason is trying to belittle you. And right before I started training jiu-jitsu, I'd started watching like the UFC fights, right? And I would get like tap out shirts and stuff like that. So I would go to school and people would want to test it and be like, you know, oh, you can fight. And I'd be like, no, I can't. I just like to watch it. I'd get picked on. I'd be super upset about it. And I went home and my mom was like, we got to get you into jiu-jitsu. You know, we got to figure something out because there was the Gracie Baja school was like 45 minutes away. So that's when we started there. And it was so funny, man. Like I couldn't do a push-up. I couldn't do anything. Like I remember 10 years old, like falling on my face, doing a push-up and like,
Yep.
You know, and that's awesome. You know, thank goodness I was like that because I can understand when someone else is like that.
Yep.
You know, it's funny to look back on.
Do you think your experiences make you a better leader, especially because you have, you know, firsthand experience of the things that you went through, especially with your little champions?
Absolutely, 100%. And like, I think that at that age of kids, especially if we're talking between like 3 years old and like, I don't know, even up to like 10, when they're just starting, I think if they start sooner and they have experience, they'll be a little bit more, have a higher expectation at that age. But when they start in between there, behavior has to be the number one thing, right? Because if you can't behave or you can't keep your hands to yourself, what reason do you think you should be sitting on somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't control yourself now when you don't need to do anything and you're not supposed to touch anybody. How do I trust that you're going to be able to control yourself then, right?
Right.
And I think that's where parents run into a lot of issue because they'll tell their kid to do something, their kid will do the opposite. And
when you get on the mat, you can't do that.
You can't do that. You can't do that. And they got to know why.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's important. You just mentioned the why.
Yeah, you got to know why. Like I got in a lot of trouble because I would get accused of doing something and I wouldn't know why my parents would think I was doing it. I wouldn't be doing it. And I'd be like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to get in trouble. You know, what's the point? And that was even up until I was like almost finished with high school. So when a kid has, it's a weird balance because you want to be their friend to have that trust, but you also need them to know you want them to get better so they have your respect. And if you don't have their loyalty in that way, you can't guide them very well, right? And it's the same thing for an adult, I think. Like if we go and train, right, and I know you're loyal to my team and I'm loyal to your team and our training is the focus of our attention at that time. And you know we're going to take care of each other. We will get a lot from that, you know? And until we're at that point, what are you getting from training other than I'm trying to beat you? And that's not the point, you know? So if we can get that across first, that's when you see kids that are very talented, you know, because they're comfortable, they can take a risk, they're not worried about if, you know, Johnny beats me or whatever it is, because it's besides the point. And I think that's super hard because every kid wants to do well, right? And they want attention, and they're going to get their attention. And it's an adult's choice, or whoever's watching their choice, if you're going to start giving the attention to the good things or the misbehaviors or the things you don't want them to do. Because too often, you know, a kid will be misbehaving and they'll get yelled at for that. But then a kid will go and sit down quietly and, you know, read a book, and nobody says, man, that is so cool.
Yep.
That is so awesome
Yep.
that you're doing that. What are you reading about? Like, tell
Yep.
me about it.
Yep. Positive reinforcement, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, I didn't know I was doing anything at all. I just came and sat down to do this, or I went to help my friend tie their belt. You got to acknowledge those things, you know, otherwise they're going to find attention from coloring on the wall or whatever.
Yep.
And you can't ignore that stuff either. So just make sure that there's more of the good than the bad, you know, and that's tough. I have a bunch of kids that for a while are super tough. There was one kid, he's been with me since he was like 3, but when he started, man, you know, like the mat tape, he would grab the edge of the mat tape and rip it up. And this kid, man, and he would like demand to go lead the warm up every time. And, you know, like for a while, he would just have to sit on the mat and watch everybody, you know, and he would cry and I wouldn't give him attention. And then he'd stop crying. I'd be like, nice, do you see what's going on? You know,
Yep.
or, you know, Mom and Dad, don't leave. I'm going to set him with you. He can watch the class. Like, it's got to be, there's that saying, like, it takes a village, right? And
It takes a village.
it really does. It really does. And, you know, a lot of people can make up for that. Like my mom, I think she made up for a lot of the village, but there still were a lot of other people involved, and there needs to be.
Do you, when you get a new student,
Yeah.
Is that the foundation of learning the behavior and the respect factor and the being a good training partner? Is that something that you start with, or you just put them with one of your more experienced kids?
Kind of both. So the experienced kids, I feel, should have the same responsibility as an adult. Like if I give a kid a gray and a white belt or something, they should know how to take care of somebody who's new and kind of show them the positions, if nothing else. So that's important. You know, like if you're doing jiu-jitsu solely on like skill and getting better at something, like you're missing a whole aspect of it. Like you got to be able to help other people. Like as a teacher, for me, there's a lot of things in jiu-jitsu that don't work for my game. You know,
I couldn't imagine that.
Well,
I couldn't imagine that.
There's a lot of things like, okay, here's a good example. If for me, I do like knee cut passes, right? Or outside passing a lot. It's going to be harder for me to put a ton of pressure on somebody because I've got a longer body type, and I've struggled with that before, is keeping my weight on someone. But that shouldn't be something that stops me from knowing how to do it well and being able to teach it to other people. You know, I should be able to teach a guy of any body type that technique. That shouldn't be a problem. But I can't do that unless I take the time to understand it, regardless if I enjoy it or I'm going to do it or not. You know, that's a huge part in being a good teacher, I think, is having that complete understanding, right?
You have humility and patience is something, you know, I wanted to discuss as well.
Yeah.
Is that where the humility comes in? You say, look, Professor Ryan, you know, I'm learning with you guys.
Yeah.
This is something that I'm not good at. I think it's great for kids and adults to hear, you know, I'm not good at this, but we're going to work through this together. I think that honesty kind of moves the school forward.
Yeah.
Hey, our professor, you know, he struggles with this. We're all going to learn this together.
Yeah.
I think that's a gratification of a professor, knowing that you have that acceptance from all of your students.
Totally. And there's guys that I have that are super athletic builds, like very big. And I think it was my end of class message a night or two ago. I was like, guys, you know, if you're training with me and you have questions on certain things, go ahead and ask. Like I was so annoying about asking questions when I was a kid or I was coming up. I still ask a bunch of questions in classes. But understand like what people are good at. Like if you come and ask me about lasso guard, right? I'm not going to say, I'm going to show you what I know, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
also going to refer you to somebody who's better than me. Like I have a student, Justin, who's great at lasso guard. And I said last night, hey, if you want to know about this, ask him. I would ask him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's what I would go do, because he studies it, he enjoys it, and I don't enjoy it, so I don't train it as much. But once I learn a little bit more, I'm sure I will, you know? So just different situations. You have to be humble. You
Yes.
can't act like you know everything. Even if you know a lot, you can't act like you know it all, you know, because that comes off as arrogant a lot of the time,
It does.
right?
Yep.
And it's not that you're trying to be, but when you talk about all that you know, that's exactly it. It comes off as arrogant. And whenever you have someone that doesn't necessarily talk about what they know, but they show what they do know,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gracious with that, and they share that like in abundance, that to me is like, that's the person I want to be with, you know, because they're just a funnel.
Yep.
You know, there's no wall built up of me, I'm going to share this secret with you now. It's like, I'm going to share what I know, and what I don't know, I'm going to tell you.
Yep.
You know,
With me starting jiu-jitsu when I was 46, of course, you know, I had my mind, I had the way that I did things.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, when I walked in, it was Professor Zuza and Coach Ari.
yeah.
I walked in and, you know, I'm like, I can get these guys. Man, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I stepped on the mat and, you know, everything was muscle, 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 no technique. And I used to just gas out. And I would go to Professor Zuza and Professor Dan and just say, hey, you know, help me with this. Help me with my stamina. Help me with my breathing. Help me move out of certain situations. So humbling for me, because I'm much older than both of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's all about that trust.
Yeah.
It's all about that trust and me being humble enough to go and ask for help. And, you know, look at me now.
Absolutely. Like if you stuck with that and you said, oh, I'm just going to keep this up until it works, you wouldn't be as skilled as you are now, you know, and you wouldn't have the relationships that you do from the mat.
Right.
I think like, man,
Absolutely.
you got to have those relationships. That's what it's
Absolutely.
about.
Yep.
That's what we're there for. It's community.
Yep.
So-
I make it a point, and you know, I've been at your school quite a few times. I make it a point to visit as many schools as I can, just to get those different lessons, build relationships. Every one of you guys have a different speciality that I like to learn from. Like you're a slippery guy. You move quick, and it's something that I have not been able to do, but the way, I don't know if you remember, but the way that we rode, I mean, you had me turning all over, found me in different locations. I'm like, man, this guy is much smaller than me, but he's just so good. So good. So that piece, you know, and me trying to get with the younger guys, definitely humbling. Definitely humbling. My point in saying that is that you can learn from anyone. Just like you just mentioned, you can learn from anyone. You just have to be open to learning.
Yeah.
And you have to be patient.
I learned so much from the people who have never done jiu-jitsu.
Really?
Yes.
How's that?
Like when they come in, like I'm so curious as to like when I see a guy like you know, you've built your life, you know, and you, more than likely, most people are confident in who you are based on what you've done and what you know about yourself. What brings you in to like be humbled, you know, like of course, like being somebody who grew up in martial arts, I understand the value in continuing to do that. But when I see somebody who hasn't had a martial arts or like an athletics background or anything like that, that is so interesting to me. Like, why does a guy who is a surgeon, who has established himself, who honestly, if he came in here and broke a finger, wouldn't be able to do his job for the next several months? What's he doing in here, you know? And like, that is so inspirational, you know?
It is.
I want to pick that guy's brain.
That's the premise of this podcast, because you guys do have doctors, lawyers, all kind of walks of life coming in.
Yeah.
And I think that's special to have people join a community that doesn't look the same. You know what I mean? You could take something from everyone, to your point. A doctor could come in, a surgeon, and break a finger and can't do his job. That just, to me, it tells me that there's a lifestyle dedication that they're putting towards jiu-jitsu for whatever reason. But we're here. You know what I mean? We're here.
Yeah, and I think like how much more do I value things after training jiu-jitsu? You know, like how much more do you value being able to get up and walk around after somebody's been holding you down for 10 minutes,
yep.
right? Like that's like, oh man, what a relief. Or, you know, there's always that message we give of taking things off the mat, and like if you can handle the pressure of tray and side control, you can handle the pressure of your kid having a bad day at school or whatever it is, right? But when you're getting competitive with it and you really are doing your best and there's nothing you can do but survive, and you get out of that, you know, you are so grateful for everything.
That's that gratification point for me.
Yeah.
For me. You know, just like I mentioned, just being my age and knowing that I have the ailments. I have a spinal fusion. I have 2 bad knees, and I'm dealing with 2 broken toes now.
Wow.
But I still keep going.
Yeah.
I still keep going because you guys encourage people to come in. You notice someone missing for a couple of days, you guys reach out. Professor JoJo, a couple nights ago, you know, we sat down and had a conversation in the office. It wasn't a bad thing. I think it was a good thing, and it showed me that he cared about me. And I think that's so special to have that at such a old age, I'll just say, to have someone that's younger than me that recognizes certain things about me and that's willing to put their arms around me.
Yeah. And it's so, I don't know any other place where that happens. You know, it's like everything washes away once you get on the mat.
Yes.
You know, there's no
age.
difference. There's no age. There's no race. There's no difference in anything. We are all there together. Like we're one team there.
Brotherhood, sisterhood.
Yes, and we all have the same value because we're all together.
Yep.
You know, it's like I'm not worse because Mike's here, Professor Mike. I'm better because Mike's here. I'm better because my mat's full. You know, I'm better because I have more white belts. It's not like, oh, I have a mat full of white belts, so nobody knows jiu-jitsu here. It's no, I'm better because of everybody that's here. We're
Absolutely.
united, you know, and you take pride in that. And there's so much growth that comes from it. You know, that community is really special, and the accountability people hold on you is really, really special, because I know, you know, for myself, and I know, like you said, with JoJo and all the professors, especially here in the Valley, there's a lot of students, and it can be tough to like know exactly everybody's journey, but we all try super hard to be a part of that and to know what's going on and to know how you feel about it. That could be a tough thing, you know, like that's something everybody should know, is if like you are coming into class and you're feeling burnt out, it might not always be transparent. You know, I was somebody who would go 3-4 times a week, and I would be worn from it. I would just, I don't want to go. I'm going to make myself. And then eventually I'd take a big break and be like, oh, what happened? If you're starting to feel that way, don't feel like you're going to have the judgment. You know, the same way you'll have the same conversation you would have if you miss a couple months, you know, where they bring you in and they say, hey, what's going on? What can we do to help you get back? There's no judgment there. So if you're feeling burnt out, talk to your professor, because there's a good chance they might say, hey, man, take it easy. Go do the fundamentals twice a week for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll check back in and kind of see where you're at and, you know, work from there, because we all want to be a part of it. I don't know a single professor that doesn't want to be hands-on in their students' journey.
For sure.
You know,
For sure.
And there's a lot of people, so it's just important to keep the doors of communication open. You know, that's huge.
Just speaking about, you know, the being burnout, when I was coaching at Peoria under Professor Dan, you know, I know Professor Dan. He lives and breathes jiu-jitsu and video games. Yeah. But he put so much energy into that school and the students that he has. And just by being that close to him, with coaching under him, I could see you know, where he needed a break. And I would just volunteer, hey, professor, get out of here. You know, just give me what you want me to give to the class. Enjoy time with your family. Yeah. Professor Dan, when was the last time you had a weekend, you know, alone with the family? You know, I raised my hand, you know, just to help out, because we need you guys to have those batteries recharged, because you guys are the driver of the bus.
Yeah, and it's so important to have people like you, like on the team. I just, like we were talking about my wedding, I just went to Italy. We got back at the end of last week, and like that was so refreshing. It was like once in a lifetime experience. Like, it was so special. And like, to know that everything was fine at Gracie Barra Arcadia while I was gone, to have a great team there and come back and have no complaints from anybody.
Did you worry about that while you were out on your...
Yes. I was worried like crazy. And there was like one situation, the guys text me, and I was like, we were like walking around in these gardens in Florence, and like I pulled my phone out and I was like, oh shit. And I started texting my wife like, Ryan, I'm going to throw your phone.
I was
like,
just
put
about
it
to
away.
ask.
And
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
Yeah.
And I just put it away. But
good for you.
It got handled well. Yeah. It's tough, man.
Yeah.
But like, that is so important. And when you have people that you can trust and people that you can tell love the school the same way you do, and the people in it, it's amazing. It's how it should be, because it's not, the professor can't be the most important. Like, they should be the figure in the school, but it's everybody in the school that makes the school. You know, like, that can be the rock of it. You know, that can be the center, but it needs all the other members of the school to work. To
For sure.
To work.
For sure. And I think that is great to have the head instructors kind of put people in places to not ownership, but to feel like they're a part of growing the school and the community.
Yeah.
I think it's great the way you guys incorporate, certain people in certain spots. And like you mentioned, being able to take time off for a honeymoon, you know what I mean? I think that's important. And I think that's a selfless thing that we all should think about when it comes to our coaches and professors. We have to recognize when you guys need a break as well, right? We have to recognize when you guys may be going through things. So we also have to pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's appreciated, and I don't think anybody minds. Like, our work is a joy. We all love it, and we're not going to be complaining to anybody about it, But sometimes I know that we don't even notice whenever we need that breather, So it's always nice. But, it's really cool to see how the community builds. And, like, my team at Gracie Barra Arcadia is one thing I take from my first professor, Marcos, is that he gave me a lot of responsibility when I was like 15, 16 years old. And it was a great thing. Like, I'm so grateful for that, because of course I failed with it, but then I was able to earn my way back and build up. And my whole team is very young. Like,
I think earn is a very important word.
Yeah. You got to work for it.
Yeah.
And my team is super young. So like, my wife is a year younger than me. I'm 24. My assistant is 17. Both of the assistant coaches that I have are 17. And then I have Coach Gabriel, who's amazing. And
yes, he is.
Like 20. So,
yes, he is.
Yeah, he's awesome.
That's a
man.
bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's awesome, dude. He's so talented. But the whole team is. And I think like all of us being under 25 and being able to have that school in the heart of Phoenix, it's pretty special. It's cool. And I give those guys a lot of trust, and like, those were the guys leading it when I was out of the country, a couple 17-year-old, 20-year-old kids.
Yep.
It's really a neat thing. And, I don't put the pressure on them to not make mistakes and fail, because that's what we get better from. So keep trying it. Do what you think is the best thing with what you know. And if it's a mistake, we'll learn from it together. If you need advice, ask, but this is a place of growth. And, both the boys that I have now were with me since they were gray and white belts. They started when they were like 13 years old. They want to go to school at like ASU so they can stay working at the school. Like,
wow,
they're super fueled by Jiu Jitsu, you know, and it's really cool that opportunity comes from Jiu Jitsu at their age, like I would have never imagined, like everything I did to work for Gracie Barra before moving out here was just like, I volunteered. I wanted to do it. So for them to actually be able to have some like, to be like financially supported through Jiu Jitsu is so awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, man, I'm so jealous of you guys. You got it, Yep. But it's amazing. I'm really happy for them, and they're really hardworking, and all of them deserve it. So they should always know. Everybody should know. You should know. Everybody should know that if it's something that if you're a Gracie Barra team member and you're wanting to make jiu-jitsu a part of your life and wanting to have a school and a community and share that door is open. You know, it takes work. It takes a lot of studying and understanding, and not just with like how we do things as Gracie Barra, but the community you're going to do it in.
Yep.
But if you want to do it, you can, you know, and I think that those boys understanding that and already having, you know, 2 years of teaching experience by the time you're a purple belt, that's amazing.
Yes, it is.
That's
Yes,
cool.
it is. How's I don't want to say satisfying. How excited were you for Professor Mike when he got his black belt?
It was awesome, man. So that was pretty special because Mike like has an awesome jiu-jitsu journey, and I'm sure you'll talk a lot about it whenever you have him on. But
I've already had him.
You already had him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. He has such a cool story, and like, he started jiu-jitsu, I want to say like around the time I did, or because I started in 2009. I don't know if he started a year before me or something like that, but like he knows all the, like we always joke about how things used to be like when we started and things like that. Like, you remember before we had rash guards and stuff like that? Like, I love Mike. Mike is such an awesome friend and an awesome guy and a great athlete. But
and he's so smart too.
So smart. And you know, like when we were talking about that weird, how the age doesn't matter as far as like mentorship on the mat and stuff, like to be able to, I guess, mentor him in any sort of way that I do get to on our mat, and to see how much of representative of Gracie Barra Arcadia and how much he cares about that school, that is so amazing. Like that is incredible. And when it came to giving him his black belt, I remember we were in Texas for the Gracie Barra Nationals a couple years ago.
I was there too.
Yeah. And I was like, Mike, you know, how long have you been a brown belt? And he was like, oh, you know, I don't remember, a couple years, X amount of time, whatever it was. And I was like, well, I think it's about time you're a professor, man. What do you think? And he was like, I don't know, man. And I was like, what reason would you want to still be a brown? Like, you're good.
Yeah.
You know, you do well in competitions. As a matter of fact, like right now you're fighting less people because you're not a black belt. Like, let's push it. And I think it's important. Like every belt I had gotten, I felt like, I don't like to say that you're ready for it, but like you're right there and you get to grow into it, you know? And I felt he was right there and he was really growing into it. And I mean, you can see based on how his whole competition year was and how, you know, you train with him, he's clearly a very good black belt. And, you know, I'm super proud because that was like the first black belt promotion I was involved in, you know, like that was my first guy. So that was really, really an honor for me. It was really humbling. And, you know, I'm really grateful for all of his trust and everything that he does to help shape the culture of the school.
I was, you mentioned being in nationals last year in Texas. I competed, and I was looking around, and I kept seeing Mike walk around because he was supposed to compete. And, you know, after one of my matches, I walked up, you know, hugged him, and we took a picture. I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? That's when he had got hurt.
Yeah, when he tore his pec, right?
He said that he wanted to compete one last time as a brown belt. I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
But now I see this guy, he has his black belt, and he is on a tear.
Yeah.
He is on a tear. Yeah. That just, it shows me. And I told him also, he's the reason why I started carrying my uniform everywhere I went. Every time I travel, now I carry my uniform, and I just pop in places. And I think that's so good that we have that membership that allows us to go and visit any Gracie Barra school.
Yeah, I don't know how I would have had a future in Gracie Barra if it wasn't for that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because I got to reach out to Flavio and have an opportunity at his schools out here. So, like, if it was just like a one and done, if it was Professor Marcos Jiu-Jitsu Academy, where's that go? You know, like, of course I could start a school and put my name on it, but that's only going to be as successful as my name gets, you know, and that's going to come through competition, you know, and that's fine. And a ton of people go that route and do very well. But Gracie Barra is like another level of like providing a great martial arts experience to people, you know, and it allows you to take many different paths.
Speaking of different schools, do you think there's a school beef?
A school beef?
Like Joe Blow's Jiu Jitsu Academy and Gracie Baja, do you think there's a school beef? I don't want to say beef, but do you think schools kind of collide and not get along because jiu-jitsu is just so competitive?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know. It's
Well,
funny because it's like I've got beef with.
Yeah, well,
No,
yeah, I'm just saying, a lot of times, and people, they could be wearing their jiu-jitsu gear.
Yeah.
And I could be wearing my Gracie Baja gear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost hard to catch me out of,
Yeah.
either BTM or Gracie Baja gear. And, I see them and I try to go up and speak to some people and they don't want to converse.
They probably have just a different outlook on what it is, or like, their why. Like, why are you here? Why are you on the mat? That's probably a lot different,
Yeah.
and like, that's fine. I mean, they each their own. Whatever you're going to use jiu-jitsu for, great. And they probably have a few friends on the mat or whatever, but you're very limited in what you're going to get from like the community. Like, I am very, very loyal to Gracie Baja.
Mm-hmm.
I will never switch up my team. That's my extended family, but it doesn't keep me from being friends with people from other schools. Like, I've had guys leave my school, have other schools, and it doesn't hurt my relationship with them at all. I mean, like, do I do things differently than other people? Of course. Yeah. I mean, like, I have my own ways of doing it, and that's even within Gracie Baja.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that if anybody's having an issue with you because of their team, that's their issue. I don't think that comes down to you personally. I've never gone to a jiu-jitsu competition and seen a team and been like, I can't stand those guys. I don't know them, like, I remember being in Chicago, and Chicago has a very good Carlson Gracie team there. And I would always fight Carlson Gracie guys, and they were really good. There was like, I think their headquarters is there. And I remember one time I had just gotten like my green and white belt, and I went and fought this kid who was a solid green belt. And man, I jumped guard on this kid, and he held me up, pushed me down, jumped over my legs, and beat me so fast. And there's ways you can take that, or I remember last year or a couple years ago, actually, at the Phoenix Open, I thought I caught a submission. The ref interpreted it different, and I was upset by that. I don't hate the guy that won that fight or hate the ref and his team because of the call he made. Like, it's the day up, like that can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
So I think that stuff is just kind of where ego starts to get into it. And there might be guys who go to competitions more frequent and have a lot more run-ins. But for me personally, I don't have a problem with anybody in the jiu-jitsu community.
Yeah, I wear my shield loud and proud. I couldn't see myself training any other place.
Yeah, and I get happy when I see other people wear their stuff. It's like, I'm happy there's another one of those communities. Good. That's great.
I've just had so many people be so good to me in Gracie Baja. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a lifelong Gracie Baja member. Yeah. You know what I mean? All the way up and beyond black belt. I will be a black belt one day. Yeah, believe it or
absolutely.
not.
I know it.
Believe it or not. Tell me about your kids' competition. Do you have a strong nucleus of people that always compete?
We're trying. So that was something that I kind of struggled with because I'd never led a kids competition team before, and I guess I didn't ask for enough help with it. But Gabriel came over.
You got to learn to delegate.
Huh?
You got to learn to delegate.
I know. And I don't know enough.
Yeah.
That was something I was like, I need to know about what to do more. What do these kids need? Because I don't think I can coach that the same way I would coach an adults comp class in the evenings at Arcadia or anything like that. But Gabriel does a great job with that. Like he worked with Jojo and Bruno for a long time and led that kids comp team. And you train at North Phoenix, you know how good their kids are.
Oh my goodness.
They're amazing.
Yep.
They're amazing. And
there's amazing kids throughout the valley.
There are amazing
just to be fair, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All over the valley. Every school has great kids.
Yes.
There's no denying that. But the technical level there was really, really cool. Like that was very I don't know. That was something that I admire a lot. And I was asking Gabriel, what do you guys do? How's the class structure really? And we've been kind of building our own at Arcadia, and we've got some good kids, probably a handful, I would say, right now. And I think in the new year, the plan is to have like a steady kids competition team. And because now we had the advanced kids class and a lot of those kids were competing, but there wasn't as much of like a commitment requirement. Now coming into the new year, our plan is to have kids that are going to be dedicated to coming to, you know, a number of practices every week, to competing in certain tournaments. They'll get certain benefits from me and Gabriel as far as private lessons or a uniform, things like that. But give them the tools.
I think that's sweet.
Yeah. If you're going to represent the school. But give them the support and have them give the commitment so that we can make an improvement in a certain competition season, whether it be 4 or 6 months or whatever it is, you know. And then even through that, then it would give us coaches I don't know. I think it would allow us to travel to do more things. Like I would love to take kids to Kids Pans. But I want to take a group of kids if we're going to do something like that. You know, I think this is like the start of that. And a lot of schools have already done a great job. Like Norat, you know, his school's very young, and he's got a great kids comp team already. Very quick, super cool. Chandler, I mean, they just killed it at Europeans, right?
Dublin, yeah. I had Professor Pugh on a couple weeks ago, and they just cool. Oh man, they went there and tore it up. I think they got like a big portion of the points just for their school. I mean, wow. You know, another thing I think, which is a good. I'm sorry to cut you off,
no,
but
you're good.
I think a good thing right now is that the kids are starting to be ranked.
Yeah,
I think that's such a good thing for them. That I think that's going to keep the sport growing right there.
Totally.
I would love to. Professor JoJo, we're going to do some things, and he's going to take a group of people, and we're going to go out and do exactly what you're talking about. I think for kids to have that experience to go abroad or in another state to compete, I think that is so cool for them to be able to do that, and those are lifelong memories.
Yeah, and it gives them such a personal bond to the team and the people they're doing it with. Like, I remember being in high school and going on wrestling meets with like my buddies, and like how cool it was to, you know, those guys were my best friends for the longest time, you know. And it's with jiu-jitsu now, the guys that I left my family in Illinois to come and move here with, that I lived with and went all around the valley and the country to go compete with. Those are my brothers, you know, like those are core friends. And, you know, that's something that you need, especially if you want to do something like jiu-jitsu for a long time. You know, you got to have things like that. You got to have different comps you go to. So yeah, that's definitely a goal of ours, is to build that so we can get a way better competition experience.
Have you guys already laid it out for 2024, or are you still in the planning phase?
Still planning it.
I would love to see how that turns out. I just get so excited when I see these kids compete, and I'm so envious because I wish I would have started jiu-jitsu at their age.
Everybody does.
Yeah. I always say that these kids are so talented. So talented. And for them to raise their hand and say, I want to compete. I learned this on YouTube. Can you show me how to do that? You know what I mean? I think that's great. I think that's great. And it tells me that they're finding a healthy, constructive outlet in life. I love to see that. Love it.
It's so special, you know, and it's so unique to see like the kids that do compete in jiu-jitsu, like what a crazy amount of pressure that they put on themselves, you know, and some of them, you know, they don't know any better and it's just a game. But the ones that like understand what's going on, that's admirable. It's tough. It's hard. I mean, I think about it when I sign up for a tournament, like, you know, I get excitement, I get nerves, you know, I think everybody does. But to see like a kid that chooses to do that, that's hard. It
is hard.
That's tough, yeah.
It's hard to start and be dedicated and see it through to the end.
Yeah.
I was talking to Professor Pugh, and I was asking him about one of his students, and it almost brought him to tears thinking about one of his students, and he was telling me that he can't wait until he's able to make this kid a black belt. I think that is so I think that's so good to be future planning like that for people that you come in contact with, especially a kid, because you have professors that only get their belts or promotions from one professor. And I think that is so cool the way that journey is followed by the first person that put their hands on a person.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And like, when I got my black belt and my professor was right there, it's like, that's awesome. Well, like Flavio and Professor Marcus were right there. It's like, that is so cool because like my second class ever was a seminar with Professor Flavio. And like, I would think back to that. It's like, dude, how it's so crazy how things like end up, like whenever you have people that support you and you can do that, you have good guidance. And I think of my assistant Jace, and he super talented, great leader. And like, he's has 4 stripes on his blue belt, in another 4 years or something, probably be a black belt. It's like, wow, that's crazy to think of, like a kid that I met when he was 12, 13 years old. Now he's, growing into himself, and, he's becoming a man, I mean, that's so cool. Like what a great thing to be a part of people's lives that intimately.
Yep. 2024.
Yeah.
I know you have aspirations on opening another school. Have you started laying that out? What does that look like for you?
No, I still, it's still just kind of like a talk thing. I would love to open other schools in the future, but right now I'm just kind of focusing on Arcadia. I know that we've got to do some remodeling there. We want to expand the mat. But really just kind of focusing in on that. It would be great to open up another school at some point. I just have to kind of see when the timing would be right on it.
Yeah.
But that's definitely on my mind. I live out west of the valley, so it would be cool to have something, close to home. But at the same time, right now Arcadia is, my baby, and I've got to take care of that. So focusing on that, again, just building the competition team up for next year, getting the tools to my team to continue to let the school thrive and make sure they're comfortable and growing in the right direction. I think that is my favorite way to think of the school, is like it's a funnel for everybody to grow through. In each person's own individual way, you use this place as a tool for your personal growth. And that can be for my wife, for the assistant coaches, everybody until the students, that's what that place is for. So just keeping the culture alive there, and giving people opportunity over and over and over, and, welcoming the mistakes and just continuing to keep the ball rolling in that sense,
Yeah, for sure.
I think staying consistent would be a good goal for 2024. Of course, I got to get back on
that's a good goal right there.
Yeah.
That's a good goal.
Getting back on competition mats is definitely something I got to do next year. This year was way too long of a break for me. So I'm anxious. I'm excited to get back out and get back to.
Well, you had some exciting things going on this year.
Yeah.
You had some very exciting things going on. Being married, and then going on this lavish honeymoon.
Oh, yeah. It was good, man.
Professor Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate us being able to sit down and you giving us a peek behind the curtain of what you are away from the mat. So I really do appreciate you stopping in and talking to us. And once you start competing again, I definitely want to have you back so we can talk through some of that.
Absolutely.
Chances are we may be competing at the same places, but definitely want to have you back to talk about our experiences.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Beyond the Mat. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share. Episode 9 is now out on YouTube. Please go and watch. Thank you.